You're probably thinking another video about someone telling me how to live my dream life, bro. This one's probably not going to be it, but I'm going to click on it for the small chance that this could actually work. And I promise you, I'm going to make this worth your time because this is everything I've ever wanted. Everything. And I swear to you, I was in your seat. And I thought to myself, it is impossible. Family members telling me, oh, dude, the only people that make it to that place are people that get chosen. Feeling like you don't have an actual chance or the power or even the ability to get there. But I think a lot of you do know internally you have that ability. You just don't know if it's actually possible. And I'm here to tell you it absolutely is. In this video, I'm going to share with you the one thing that changed everything for me. As promised, the formula to your dream life. And it's not just about the beautiful surroundings, which this is pretty beautiful, let's not lie. But it's about having that aura and that charisma and that internal power that you know you're capable of anything. And it's all done by doing one thing. And I'm going to share with you what that one thing is in this video and how it's applied to my life and how I actually did it. And unfortunately, it's not going to be an answer you want to hear. I swear to you, it's always the answer, and you know this. It's always the answer that you're like, shit, is that actually it? And I'm here to tell you it absolutely is, because on this channel, we keep it real. If this is something you are super interested in, and I feel like I'm talking to a certain part of you, which is why I'm introing with this, then you're going to want to stick around to the end of this video, okay? All right, let's get to it. And we're back at it again with another video, boys. It's a beautiful day out. Absolutely beautiful. I have the coffee on lock, so you know this one's going to be real. And as promised in the intro, I told you we are going to get into it, but it's going to start with one thing. And I'm going to tell you it's the one thing that every man owes to himself just one time in his life. The issue is, in today's time, you have to force yourself to do this thing because life today is all about convenience, comfort, right? These are words you've probably heard before. But before we get started, oh, I gotta talk in like a gentleman. And a coffee, come on. If you're sipping on coffee, you gotta be tucked in, right? I don't even know if that's a rule, but it felt right, you know? Like I felt guilty for not having a shirt tucked in while drinking coffee. And that's what we do. We trust our intuition, which is perfect for the topic on today's video, which is about trusting your instinct. But how do we build instinct, right? How do we build this thing that's so necessary? Because I'm going to tell you right now, having great instincts is required to live a top 1% life. It really is. But that's where knowledge and instinct are two different things. You probably have more knowledge than I have. And I'm not just saying that to be facetious. I guarantee you probably know more than me. But the difference is my knowledge is built to build my instincts. That's why you can hear two people say the same exact thing, but for some reason, the way one person says it, you're trying to emulate. You can copy and paste his words all day long. Absolutely you could. But you know deep down that it doesn't carry the same. It's not just because that guy might have a better life, but it's a tone. It's the way you say it that's just grounded in practicality. It's practical optimism, is how I like to word it. But the one thing that's going to change everything for you is the art of going all in when it doesn't make sense. I am not kidding you. And I'm going to share a little bit of a snippet of my story because I know exactly where you're at. So I'm going to tell you exactly where I was at because I'm telling you, I lived in hell. Because in my house, like, listen, everyone's telling me you have to have a passion. You have to do this. You have to do that. I was like, my passion is just getting there. I just want to get to the top of the mountain. I don't know what it is. I don't care what it is, to be honest with you. It's just about pushing myself as much emotionally, physically, mentally, and even creatively. Did I say that wrong? Creatively. Better. But all four of those factors, that's all I've been after. Because I know if I push myself as far as I can in those four regards, I'm going to become someone that I'm so proud of. And I swear to you, the way that you do that is by going all in on something when it doesn't make sense. The story that I'm going to share with you is just a snippet of my story. There is so much to it. I'm not saying, oh, this was the thing, but I'll never forget it. So this was after I've been trying, so post-college, all right, I worked for this startup. And And there's a previous video where I talk about leading up to college, right? So if you're interested in learning about like how I actually got started, like my entire work resume, it's there. That's the first part. We'll kind of get into the second part. So I worked for this startup. I interned for them while I was in college. I was selling more than the full-time people while I was in college and an intern. So I was given an opportunity. Keep in mind, it's a startup. It's not like this is like the biggest deal in the world. It's not like, oh, dude, you got promoted. Like, it was a very small company. That's why I wanted to work for a startup, because it was super raw. You know, I'm able to see. I'm like, okay, I get to see behind the scenes, and then I'll be able to make my own company one day. And cup of coffee. Coffee. Oh, Jesus. My God. Yeah, that's fantastic. I don't even know why that spoon's in there. I drink it black. Um, anyways, so after college, I was granted this opportunity to run the sales department, right? I was a sales director, was the name. Titles are bullshit, fun fact. I worked for them, did decent, but he wasn't giving me the responsibility I was looking for. It's almost like basketball players, when they know I have a bunch of talent, like they make them rest a ton, which I actually think is stupid. Because that person wants to rev up their engine. What you're doing is you're almost training them to not do as much. You should be training them to do as much as possible, as many reps as possible. And so long story short, I worked for him, and eventually we mutually parted ways. And then from there, I started trying my own hand at different ventures, right? I don't want to get into specifics because then this video would be 3 days long. But point is I got into ventures, I tried this, I tried that, kept failing, because you want to know why? I really wasn't all in, even though at that point I was able to do so. I just had no faith in my abilities, you know? So deep down, when you don't have belief, it doesn't matter if you have all the skill and talent in the world, you'll just never be able to make it happen. Belief is step one. You have to internally believe that this is something that I can do, right? And, you know, you're probably thinking, well, how do I internalize that type of belief? And that's kind of what I'm going to get into here. My beliefs stem from almost having zero options in my head. So after then, after I kept, trying and failing, I went down a pretty, darker path where I was just like didn't care if I lived or died kind of thing, to be completely honest with you. Didn't really care. It's not that I was like, oh, I'm going to off myself, I don't know if that's allowed on YouTube. But my point is and don't do that if that's any of you guys. Like, I get sometimes life really takes you to the depths of hell. It takes you into the darkness and walks you down. But I knew that that was going to happen for me. As crazy as it sounds, I made that decision to part ways from that startup. I had a feeling that I was going to be walking the lion's den, but I was always so fearful that I wouldn't be able to handle that depth of dark. And I had to walk it down and know if I was that guy. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I always internalize and I believe that. And so after trying and failing, these like different business models, get rich in 3 months, I tried them all. And it was just like, I finally realized, I was like, it's just not in it for me. I just suck at this. Everyone else, and you see these testimonials of people like, oh, I've done this, I've done that. And I'm like, hey, maybe I just don't have it. Maybe the internal belief that I actually do have something special was a facade. And so I went down a darker path, got into some things I shouldn't have got into. Just kind of throwing my life away. Didn't really give a shit, to be honest with you. I kind of wanted to touch rock bottom. I kind of purposely did it, out of self-sabotage. Just like, let me break everything down because everything that I've built just feels like garbage. I have to break myself down. I have to make sure everyone else in my life looks at me like a piece of shit. Not like actually one, but the point is like a loser. That's kind of what I mean by a piece of shit. Looks at me like a loser, like, oh, they have no faith in me. Oh, he's thrown his life away. He has no ability. Maybe one day he'll just be able to get it together and live a very average life. And so by the time that all started happening, I realized I needed to do something that was crazy. Perfect timing. The adhan's going off for my Muslim brothers and sisters. I don't think there's any sisters on this channel, to be honest with you. I don't think they're super supremacists. I'm going to wait for a second. La ilaha illallah. And that brings me to the next thing I decided to do. So at this point, everybody in my life has pretty much looks at me like a lost cause, like a loser. And I purposely did that because it fired me up. For the first time in my life, everyone looked at me as the underdog. And for most of my life, I was looked at as the talented kid, the skilled kid, the one with a ton of potential. And I didn't know how to handle that pressure. So I actually think subconsciously I broke everyone's opinion of me down to then have that fire of not being looked at as good enough. Because internally, I never felt like I was good enough. So I applied for, a corporate job, multi-billion-dollar corporation. It was actually at Bosch, but they had this subsidiary company. Subsidiary is a fancy word for just like a company underneath Bosch. And so I applied for a bunch of jobs there, and I ended up getting an interview and I got a job. And this is the last thing I ever wanted to do in my life, but everyone looked at me and said, your tools are dulling, is what they told me. Basically saying like you're dulling out as a human being, you're not as sharp as you once were, and you're only getting older, that's only gonna get worse. And so it was my job in my own head to prove everybody wrong. Long story short, I ended up getting the quickest promotion in company history, and I got it within 2 months. And it's not like it was like some, average promotion. Keep in mind, it's a billion-dollar corporation, much different than the startup company I was starting at. And so they had this thing called DAT, D-A-T, and that was entry level. Then there was MEP, which is mid-tier level, and then there was Pro. Pro is senior, like senior sales. And that typically takes people about 3 to 5 years, let's say. And they were growing fast, so they were promoting people a lot quicker than they were accustomed to in the past. And I got that within 2 months. It was so unheard of that I had HR trying to block my promotion at every turn. They didn't want me to do that. They thought it was unfair because other people were pissed off because it's like, I've been working here for, and it makes sense, I've been working here for 2.5 years, 3 years, and I still haven't gotten the promotion. How is this guy getting it? And it had to do with a lot of my former failures in the past, believe it or not, that I tried my hand at. A couple things that I had in the resume that I was able to articulate and speak on that set me apart from everybody else. So the things that I was once, holding shame for ended up becoming the reason for the promotion. And that's when you realize that life doesn't make that much sense. You just got to do more. You just have to do so much. But after then, I'm doing crazy in the pro channel. I closed a $1.3 million deal, which is like, I think it was the biggest of the year. And this is all, keep in mind, it's all within like 6 months. I went to their Home Depot show. There's like a huge Home Depot show every year. And I gave a presentation, to all the Home Depot reps and managers. And I didn't know anything about power tools, fun fact. It's a power tool accessories company. And I didn't know anything about tools. I swear to God, for $1 billion before that job, I could not have pointed to a circular saw blade for $1 billion. I wouldn't have been able to. I would have fumbled the bag. I didn't know anything. But it was how I was, it was my character, it's how I presented myself, it was the type of shape I was in, my ability to articulate certain things, even being super humble, like understanding. And I was honest with them. I said, dudes, I don't know nearly as much as everyone else. But they understood that those things can be learned. The things that I had could not be learned. Instead of me explaining everything that's happened, there's a lot that's happened, in that probably, 9-10 month period. Ended up getting into a pretty bad car accident because I was forced to be on the road 24/7. And then everything kind of came downhill. I felt like I was on a rocket ship, and it forced me to kind of settle in. I got a pretty bad, gnarly concussion. And it made me think, like, do I actually want to live this life? Because they made it very clear to me, we want to groom you. Such a weird word now, especially with the state of the world. But basically, to be an executive of the company, we're going to fast track you to become an executive. We see you being, at the head table rather quickly, essentially guaranteeing my future, right? And after the accident, just made it super, super clear that job, although it wasn't my first choice, was the reason why I'm here today. And it was because they gave me confidence that was earned. I earned the confidence that I had at that point. My conviction was at all-time highs. And it was because I won, right? Like I was winning at life again. And I was winning in a way that felt so natural to me. And it's because I went unconscious, like instead of spending all this time thinking, how do I plan out the strategy of a lifetime to get to those levels of the dream life, I realized going unconscious and like all I cared about in those moments when I did what I did while I was there at Diablo was want to prove my worth to myself. I realized that coming out of it, was like all it was It was a project for me to say, am I actually that guy? Am I worth it? Do I have the ability? Can I do these things? And once that proved to be yes for me, I quit the job, putting my 2-week notice. I said it was the nicest 2-week notice anyone's ever given, because we're gentlemen, right? You thank them for everything that they provided me. And I can honestly tell you, that job turned me into a man. It manned me up. The amount of hours and the level of professionalism required for that job, it was one of the hardest jobs. It was the hardest job I've ever had in my life, by far. Never have done anything nearly as difficult up until that point. And it was because it taught me to show up on time, to put in more extra hours, to never let your quality, although you're putting in a quantity amount of hours, your quality never drops. Your standard is your standard. I learned a lot from that job. That job put hair on my chest, even though I'm incapable of growing chest hair. It's unfortunate, but, genetics. What can you do? I have gray hair. What can a man do? All we can do is maximize what we got. But at that point, I quit my job and I went all in on an online business where I set, it was like 60 grand, about 60 G's on fire, essentially. And it was because, and you're thinking, what the hell did you just say? I wanted to start an online business with like real physical products. My cousin came up with this idea and I just said, hey, do you mind if I run with this? And he said, dude, go for it. And that's a story for another day, because that's an entire story in itself. But long story short, I didn't end up selling anything. I sold one item, after spending $60,000 and setting on fire. And you want to know something? Everyone around me was so worried, and there's not one part of me shaking. Do you want to know why? Because I knew in my house, like, it's about taking steps in the right direction. None of it makes sense. How I was able to do what I did at Diablo, it didn't make sense, but it all mattered. My entire life mattered. Everything that was shit in my life mattered, because I was just taking directionally correct steps. I forgave myself for the L's I took. So after setting that on complete fire, I was at limited options. I said I could, and I'm telling you to this day, I know I would have eventually gotten it working. But in my head, I was like, is this actually what you want to do? Do you think your talent, who you are as a person, and how your heart beats, do you think this is it? I was like, no. And I came across this ad on Twitter, or X, and it was about starting personal brands. Making content and making a living through your own content, through your own businesses. And I said, shoot, I'll check this out. Look through it, and funny enough, I was actually pitching my cousin on this. And I told him, I was like, hey man, I think this is something that'd be great for you, because he had some stories there that were very aligned with the testimonials they had. And as I read through it, I sold myself. As I was selling my cousin, I sold myself. Got on a call, wasn't expecting to do anything. Long story short, I ended up talking with these guys that were just like very much my style. And I was like, I know something? I'm going to start posting content. And funny enough, and I can take you all the way back, even like, my college years and high school years, I never had social media growing up. None. Zero whatsoever. I had an Instagram account for 2 years in college because someone made it for me. I never was a social guy. Everyone's like, dude, you on Facebook? You on this? You on that? I'm like, no. And I took pride in it. I'm like, yeah, I'm not a social media guy. It makes you different, So you're like, yeah, I'm just not like that social kind of guy, bro. I'm more of an in real life type of person, which I think is a superior way of living, in my opinion. If you can swing it, 100%. Unless you're doing it for reasons that I'm doing it, which is it fills up my heart. I feel like I'm making a difference when I get these messages from you guys. There's nothing like it, I feel like I kind of skipped over steps, so my apologies. I'll come back to the story. Nothing, the point of me saying all this is nothing sent chills down my spine more than hitting the post button for the first time. And the reason why I knew it was the right answer is because I was like, this is exactly what I'm meant to do, and I'm terrified. Keep in mind, I quit a job that basically guaranteed me to become an executive, where I never have to worry about a dollar for the rest of my life. I set $60,000 on fire. And that was still the scariest moment of my life, because I was naked to the world. All of my friends, family, everyone's going to see me either succeed or fail. And it's going to be embarrassing if I fail. So guess what? In my head, I had no other choice. Keep in mind, coming back to the one thing, I went all in. And I knew losing was not an option. I put myself into a corner that said, I can't fail, because failing isn't just about me recognizing that I failed, but everyone else sees that I failed. And people say, oh, you shouldn't focus on that. Whatever tools you have in your arsenal are tools that you need to instill into your life. My fear of failure and fear of embarrassment and being naked to the world is what it felt like. That's what propelled me as quick as I have gone. I've been on Instagram for a year and a half. I have 254,000 followers as of today. I have over 16,000 on YouTube, over 30 on TikTok. I think those are only 3 platforms. Facebook I was posting in the beginning just because it's like, why not? But over 20 there. In a year and a half, all of this changed. From the moment I decided to just sack up and say, you want to know something? I'm going to post because I know it's the right thing to do for me in my life. And I'm all in. This is literally the last shot I have at making something of myself. That's how I genuinely felt internally. You're not thinking about failure. You just went all in. When I say all in, this isn't just money. I was on my last dollars. And on top of that, it's the emotional part of the equation. Now everyone gets to see me and I'm at 0. Everyone's seeing me at my lowest. Like on paper. I was at much lower points in my life. But my point is like I'm literally starting at ground zero. From 0 followers, 0 idea how I'm going to make it happen. I just had belief and I knew in my head deep down, I said, I'm meant for this. And you know it. You have to trust your instinct. This entire story is to explain to you, how the hell does any of this make sense? How did that go from here to this, to this, to that? None of it makes sense. To have a top 1% life, to live your dream life, to have the aura and charisma is about going all in with nothing. I had no resources. I had nothing. I had help, obviously, with people, helping me out, as I explained, like, this is how to do content, this is how you want to do stuff. But most of the time, I just listened to whatever I wanted to do. I just trusted my instincts. But it was just so understanding of how the internet works. Dude, I told you, I didn't have social and stuff. Just understand how the internet works and where the hell to put my mouse. Like, I'm an old man when it comes to this stuff. Like, I'm not good. Now I'm decent. But when I got started, I was no better than my grandfather. Guy doesn't even have an iPhone. You get what I mean? But that is it. It's about knowing that nothing can kill you. Nothing can break you. And I'm not mediocre. I am not the average man. And it's always sickened me for my life to live mediocre. To look at myself as mediocre, it's sickened me. And that's why I had to walk myself to the bottom. Because at least I know in my head, even if I'm at the bottom, I'm literally below ground level. I'd rather be there because there's so much you can learn from touching those rock bottom moments than you can when life is just good enough. And that's the problem. When it's just good enough, there is no urgency. That's why when you go all in, for the select few of you, I know some people that can do both, but those of you that are kind of like me that just don't know how to do that thing where you balance both, I'm not a balance guy. I'm an all-in guy. I'm very intense. I'm extremely extreme. But this is who I am. I can't play off other people's playbook. You have to play to your own playbook. So for those of you that are good at balancing both, run it, dude. Run it. If you know you do better that way. But I'll tell you what, coming from someone like me, I was either going to live the worst possible life or the best. And it's because the loser and winner archetypes are so closely aligned. They're so close. I swear to you, you start realizing it, especially when you've lived a life this way, where I've lived as a loser and I'm living life as a winner now. Like, middle is the opposite of loser and winner. The opposite of winner isn't loser, because it's like these things, like these weird little ticks that you have, they're so closely aligned. It's just about learning how to aim that thing properly that is so volatile, the weapon that really it is. It's such a volatile weapon. And when you know that nothing can kill you and that you're still standing after all of the bullets you have taken, that is what gives you that aura and charisma and that gentleman thing. I have to throw in the gentleman thing. But my point is, like, I'm being so serious with you. Like, there is something about that. Like, there's some people that walk around and you can tell there's an air to them. And it's because, trust me, they've been close to dead. And they know that nothing can happen to them and they wake up and say, oh, my life's over. Because you get to wake up another day. And every day you get to make the choice of just making it happen. It does not matter. You can burn the shit out of the past. It has no control over you. The only thing your past should tell you is that there is nothing that can kill me. I'm capable of X, Y, and Z. Building self-awareness. I don't like this. I'm not good at this and I don't like it. But I'm good at this and I like it. Or I like this and I'm not good at it, but I want to be better at it. It's whatever you have the most amount of energy for. For me, I put myself in a position where not having enough energy just wasn't an option. I had to win. I don't care if I'm on 2 hours of sleep. I'm still doing what I have to do. Every single day, my life looks no different if I had $1 billion or negative 1,000. I'm having to deal with overdraft fees. It doesn't matter. I'm waking up doing the same exact thing because all I know is I'm headed there. And when you're that clear, it doesn't matter about what the mechanism is to get there, or the business model is to get there, the passion is to get there. You just have to find something that gives you energy, that makes you feel a certain way. And I'm telling you, everybody has it. They just know it's not realistic. This is part of going all in. You have no idea. You're jumping and there could be no ground under you. But you know deep down that's not actually that long of a fall. You might scuff your ankle, hurt your knee, but you ain't going to die. That level of conviction is impossible to replicate unless you go all in. It's impossible. The deeper down you go, you have to win. You have to come back above water. But once you do, and you have the trust to do that, you'll have everything you've ever wanted. You'll have the body you want, the girl you want, the character you want, the respect you want. Because you've been doing it for yourself this entire time. And everyone else is just along for the ride. And all you care about is making life a better place for everybody else. Because that's the only thing that puts a smile on your face. Go all in. Don't be scared. I promise you, it's going to be the best decision of your life. My story doesn't make sense. But it doesn't matter because in the end, I'm exactly where I want to be. And all I can do is say thank you to God. And thanks to myself as well for God giving me whatever is inside my DNA and the blood that runs through my veins. I wouldn't change it for the world. Anyways, I appreciate you watching this video. Thank you for watching, especially if you made it till the end. I really do hope this helps you out. I hope this was exactly what I promised and I delivered. Anyways, if there's anything you guys want specifically, anything you guys want to know more of, please drop it down in the comments. And if people like those comments, give those a thumbs up. And then I don't make a video on it. As always, y'all, I love you very much. From Uncle Rami to the Natural Crusaders, Uncle Rami out. Peace.